Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's Cabinet meeting. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. I have one apology for absence this evening, and that is Councillor Tomlin. Do I have any declarations of interest, anybody, on the agenda this evening? No. There are no urgent matters. I have the minutes of the meeting, previously held on the 5th of September. Are you happy that I sign them as a true and accurate record of the meeting of the 5th of September?
Agreed.
I shall do so. The first item on the agenda that I should have read out, and I shall do this straight away, is the fire evacuation. It seems we do actually have a member of the public here, so I should do this. There are no fire alarms scheduled for this evening. Therefore, if the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately. The fire exit is located at the side of the room. Exit through the reception and meet in the War Memorial Park. The meeting's being webcast live on the internet, and you can follow it on YouTube. In terms of microphones, can I remind members and officers that in order to be heard clearly within the room by those present, the webcast, you must speak into the microphone and move the stem so you can be heard, and the stem is satted so the camera will stay on you when you speak. In terms of mobile phones, can you turn them on to silent, please? That's what I should have said to start with. Item 5 is the first substantive item on the agenda this evening, which is the updated Council Plan 2023 to 2027. We have done a tremendous amount of work as a Cabinet, working with our amazing officer team to produce what is now an amended Council Plan that looks directly to address the people's priorities, partners and businesses that they've clearly shared over many years with this Council. It seeks to build on the Council Plan that was published earlier this year, and it defines our early priorities as a new administration. We're building on the Council Plan, we're amending it and we're updating it. We're focusing on 3 core priorities, just as before. We're focusing on making the place we live, work and enjoy the very best it can be, focusing on pride in our place. We're being very clear that we take the climate and ecological emergency seriously, and that is a core thread that's running throughout the Council's work. And we are focusing on the Council's services that are critical to our residents, because they rightly deserve the focus and attention of our authority. These 3 core principles reinforce and build on the original plan's 3 priorities, but the actions and words of this plan flow from those priorities and again build on what was previously there in the action plans. A flavour of our focus includes key actions adding to existing actions. For example, delivering on a local plan to reduce the housing number, working within the current straitjacket of national government laws that we all want to see changed, working to deal with the dwindling supply of affordable housing that we're seeing and focusing on the delivery of more affordable housing, and in particular socially rented, delivering a university for Basingstoke and driving the delivery of Manydown, focusing on the regeneration of the top of town as a start to our plans for the future of the town centre, introducing a livability standard to guide and shape future and existing development, driving forward our very clear renewed focus on regeneration in Buckskin, South Ham and Winkleberry, the delivery of a new aquadrome, but also the renewal of our leisure park, but also the support we have for our services such as the CSPOs, in partnership with the local police force, which is changing its model and welcoming a new local policing model in terms of neighbourhood policing that will work alongside our CSPO teams. Our commitment to tackling climate change and the ecological emergency can be seen through our commitments to solar power on our council-owned buildings and our desire to drive that agenda. Our desire to deliver a very ambitious biodiversity strategy, and our commitment, despite recent government proposals, to protect our rivers and chalk streams. We really do value our precious water assets in our borough, and we're going to do all we can to maintain and improve the quality of our rivers. That is a priority of our administration. We want to see our parks and open spaces improved, so moving forward with the long-term plans for the future of Eastrop Park, or developing proposals such as accessibility through improved play and play area programme. Basically, we're putting the residents' interests first. It's the residents' priorities we're putting first, and it is how we can do that by investing in our frontline services too, to achieve cleaner streets and enhanced grounds maintenance. There's lots of things that come out of our council plan, our amended council plan, that recognise the things this authority can do to make a difference to local people, such as tackling the cost of living crisis and the economic uncertainty that people are facing, both residents and businesses. And in being an inclusive borough, we take it very seriously the difference the local authority can make by developing an anti-poverty strategy, by bringing together the calls that have been both on fuel poverty and food poverty, but also a general drive to tackle poverty in our borough. We have a growing and diverse community, and we make it very clear that we wish to celebrate the diversity of our borough. So our focus will be on empowerment and inclusion for all of our communities in our borough. And we send a very clear message that we want to achieve these priorities through partnership. We cannot do it all on our own. It's not about consultation, it's about collaboration. Collaboration with our partners, both public and private, to achieve the ends that we have set out here in this council plan. We achieve that through our amazing workforce, our officer teams who are delivering this for our residents, and our investment and support for them doing the work they do. So the amendments that we've made reflect this as a starting point for our new administration, building and updating what was there before, but clearly driving the focus of delivery, which is the key for us, the delivery and the outcomes that we want our residents to see. So in proposing this council plan, amended council plan, we've taken it to scrutiny, and I'd like to thank the scrutiny committee for their comments. They are welcomed, and we're going to look to take them on board as we work through the council plan, particularly around the indicators and the performance indicators and the debate that was had. And I thank officers for taking that on board at the meeting. And also, we know we've got some very complex issues to work through. So I can say that this council plan and this approach from this cabinet, this executive, this administration, is about listening, yes, about working with people, yes, in collaboration, and it's about the results that we want. So I propose the council plan to the cabinet this evening, and we'll welcome any comments you have. But first, I'm going to invite our only public speaker up this evening, which is Paul, if you want to come forward. You've got 2 minutes, Paul, but I'm conscious that you don't need to worry. Say what you need to say.
Thank you, Chair. To remain within the allotted time, I have 2 footnotes actually related to these comments. One in particular is lengthy and relates to roadside verge working and the Road Traffic Act. I've separately supplied that. The proposed biodiversity panel is very welcome, but I fear that operational services and the role of community groups and communities will not be included, and that these issues, split across portfolio, will not receive the attention they warrant. I urge relevant portfolio holders to jointly consider the 4 following points. 1. We need innovative ways of accelerating community and green plans that engage communities and devolve powers and responsibilities. I volunteered my time to assist in the second and most recent attempt at producing a community plan for Hatch Warren. Participants stepping forward were disappointingly small, but willing. The lack of focus and impetus condemned it to fail. 2. Consideration for the long-term stewardship of green infrastructure is arguably overdue and will take years to evolve at different speeds if communities are to have a bigger role and share responsibilities. Long-term stewardship needs different leadership skills, dedicated focus, and new funding streams. I urge Cabinet to kick-start the process through the Council Plan and possibly through panels, and to include long-term stewardship in the updated local plan as a commitment. 3. There needs to be transparency and discussion with communities or groups about the operational priorities for conservation grass cutting, the scale of service demand, the capacity and service issues, and the absence of diversity in service delivery. 4. Please review BIS and the issue of roadside verge working for volunteers. In practice, BIS has denied Hatch Warren Nature Group from having any influence any longer on grass management, including on 5 out of 7 Hampshire County Council and Basingstoke roadside verge sites that volunteers spent years restoring. Further proposals for restoring small sites on roadside verges on Basingstoke land have been similarly blocked, and I believe without good reason, for which I have evidence. In conclusion, what is the incentive for communities and volunteers to keep going when achievements are disregarded and groups are expected to accept inadequate services and top-down opaque processes and decisions without being involved or helped to evolve into something more sustainable? Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate what you're saying, and I also get your passion. about it, because it's not the first time that you've raised such issues. Admittedly, you were raising them to a different administration before, and I welcome the fact that you are raising them with us, because what we've said very clearly is that we want to move to a state, as it were, of collaborating rather than simply consulting people and engaging with people. It's a very different approach we want to build. It isn't there at the moment because we are changing our approach, and our officer team is examining what a collaborative approach will look like. But it's there, it's being worked up, and I think that's important. The points you talk about in terms of long-term stewardship, and I think the approach that we take to working with volunteers and community groups is something of strength in the borough. Actually, there are some exceptionally good examples of it around the borough. The issues you've raised are things that we need to look at and we need to take on board. And I think that's important that we do that. We hear what you're saying and listen to what you're saying. But it's important to say as well that there are absolutely exceptional examples of good practice already out there that we should celebrate as well. And I appreciate your experience might not always have been that, but we need to hear what you're saying, but also say actually what is also going on in other places. So let's take away the comments that you've shared with us this evening. Let's work through what you've given us this evening. Let's look at that in terms of from portfolio perspective, where we can work with you and others. It's not just you saying, and then build on this idea of our collaborative approach. And I hope that's an acceptable way of taking forward the comments you shared with us this evening. Cool. Thank you very much. Colleagues, this is our council plan to adopt this evening, to agree. It will then go to full council for approval. Would anybody like to pass any comment on the council plan? Any particular points within it? Councillor James. Laura James.
Thank you. I think you've raised a lot of these points anyway, but I'll go over them again. I think the focus for me, or part of my portfolio, is the investment in frontline services is a key priority. We have listened to residents and what is important to them. We want to see cleaner streets and a higher standard of grounds maintenance. We want a gold standard of service. We are employing lots more staff to achieve this and to support our amazing staff that we already have. We are investing to improve. We will deliver a programme of play area improvements. We are investing further in our parks and open spaces, access to public toilets, and an increased number of frontline housing staff. We want to provide outstanding frontline services, and this is a very key part of this council plan.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Morrow.
Oh, sorry.
I was panicking there. Right, thanks. I'm very lucky to be portfolio holder for sports, leisure and culture. But one of the things that I'm going to draw your attention to is a council fit for the future. People, both our councillors and our staff, are our biggest asset in achieving our priorities. That's pretty much been the best part of this so far for me, is my team and the officers I work with. And also, it's going to be, to make a lot of these things happen, we have to have councillors, 54 councillors all have to work together to make this happen. And also volunteers, which is what we're missing the most. As for actually the sport, we've got the LRNA, so we're quite set on what we have to do on that front. Leisure, I've made a lot of progress trying to improve the service after COVID. It was a difficult time for leisure, and we definitely have seen improvements in the communication at the Aquadrome and at Tadley Pool. And moving on to the culture side of it, one of the biggest things we're going to work on is trying to bring music back to Basingstoke. Live music is something that we're missing, and we're hoping to bring that back alongside many other things that are going along. One of the things we really want is for sports, is for grassroots people to get a chance to play sports. And again, in the culture, again, is to get young people with most of our events are free, and that's really important. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Councillor James.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. It's an updated plan, not a brand new plan. We didn't want to go through the process again, but we didn't want to delay. to get on with some of the good stuff and the great ideas that are coming out of this new administration. I'm particularly excited about the increase in the services we offer, and I think, building to Paul Beaver's point, I think if you've got a better capacity within your service structure, you're able to more reflect the local needs. We recognise that in some areas you get lots of volunteers, they're very keen, in other areas you don't, and obviously responsibility will always sit with us ultimately. So we'd welcome working with volunteers as much as we possibly can in a safe way, insurance company allow us to, but equally we're not ever going to duck our responsibility that we are the guardians of the future welfare of this borough in terms of its environment and in terms of climate change. That responsibility will always sit with us. Also, the work that Laura James is doing on housing, I think, is going to be a real game changer. Housing is a major issue within the borough, particularly around affordability. And I know there's another paper coming later on that points to that, another one tomorrow night or Thursday night in EPH that builds on. And so some of these plans are already going to be delivered very quickly. Obviously, all council plans are a mixture of long-term and short-term. But what we're really keen to do is, and this is why we've amended the plan and brought it forward straight away, is because we want to get on with stuff. We want to actually deliver stuff. If we look back in 3 years and can see a lot of our plan has become action, then we'll be very proud. Clearly, some of those things are more longer term, and will take a little bit of solving, particularly around the top of town and places like that, where it's really quite a complex thing to deal with. But we're very determined to get on with it and make progress. Reassuringly, we've managed to do all of this within the budget that's available to us. We're not a council and administration that's going to be squirreling money away, as sometimes councils are accused of. This is taxpayers' money. We've got a responsibility to use it wisely, use it well, but also, again, we're the guardians of the future. So there's 1,001 good ideas that we could have put in this local plan, but we've held back whilst we work out how they're going to be funded. So I'm pleased to support it, and hopefully we'll get the back in a full council, because as Kerry says, 54 councillors, we want to be a voice for all of them. There is something in this plan for every single resident in the borough, and that's what I think we can all be very proud of.
Well said, Kevin. Ollie.
Thank you, Leader. Well, I just want to say I feel hugely privileged to be part of this cabinet and very excited to be serving the residents and very excited with the ideas that this cabinet has already come up with, and really supportive of our agenda. My portfolio is major projects and regeneration, and we have been working behind the scenes day in, day out, almost feels like 24/7 with officers, and really can't thank the officers enough as well, because I'm a bit of a nightmare when it comes to deep dives into information. I can't thank the officers enough for accommodating my requests. But as a result, I think we're tantalisingly close to some really exciting announcements, which the residents will be, I think, very pleased with. As I said, I'm major projects, so that's the leisure park, Basing View, top of town, the Many Down, and regeneration. And we're driving forward, and we are absolutely focused on making sure that just because we're a new administration, we are not delaying the process, and the officers are completely supportive of that. So wait for the news, but we are working hard. And as I said, we have also been travelling the breadth of the country, visiting sites that we think are useful to feed back into what we want, because we are aspiring for the highest delivery for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm delighted with the council plan. I mean, I only need to go to the first of the overall priorities, which is a place where people can live, can have pride in their communities in the borough. So when your portfolio is communities, partnerships, inclusion, that's speaking the right language from the word go. My take on the portfolio is that although inclusion is the last word in the job title, it actually starts there, because that's the basis on which we build communities and foster successful partnerships. And that means reaching out to all parts of the borough, not just selected parts. So officers are working very hard on strategic partnerships and the various grant schemes that the council offers to support activities in our borough. So I think that's incredibly positive. taking action and supporting all sorts of organisations. The importance of listening and then taking action was mentioned earlier, and I've been doing a lot of listening, meeting many organisations around the borough from all sorts. To name just but a few, the Association of Parish and Town Councillors, so we respect the whole borough, rural and town, every corner. Meeting with the Cultural Diversity Consortium, very successful Windrush and Black History Month events recently, and developing other partnerships with organisations like Neighbour Care and Fluid Motion. Now, I'm just using these as a few examples to build how we're looking in 360 degrees around the borough. But at the heart of the thing, the one area I want to mention, and finally in policing was mentioned in the leader's initial comments, delighted that their return to neighbourhood policing coincides with this local plan, because beyond the obvious feeling safe and worried about crime, is the impact of not feeling safe on health and well-being in the borough. So the timing of the police change to their organisation is a great opportunity for us to liaise closely with them, to work in tandem, and it's very consistent with this local plan that's on front of us. And just one final mention to our own community safety patrol officers, who the police have great respect for, and having met some of those officers and been out in patrol with them cements my belief that we've got a great resource there. Thank you.
Very much so. Councillor Konishko.
Thank you, Paul. Since we took over, I've been very much focused on restarting the local plan update process. So I think every document I read at the moment, I'm probably guilty of looking at it with a local plan update blinker. And with that in mind, it's really encouraging to see the strong connection between this plan and the local plan update, particularly in areas such as our response to the climate and ecological emergency, such as the new livability standard that we're pushing, and also around our commitment to investing in and promoting in community facilities. Looking beyond the local plan just for a minute, if I'm allowed to do that briefly, it's really struck me reading this document and also hearing the comments from my colleagues this evening. And hopefully this doesn't sound too grandiose, but the plan to me is about helping to bring back a sense of joy to our borough. It's about using the arts, it's about using sport, it's about providing access to leisure facilities, whether they're in the leisure park or just natural, beautiful green space that we're so lucky to have here to help increase joy in the borough. And I love that. And I think just concluding comments from me are, I'm really proud that this administration has put together this plan. I'm really proud to be part of this administration, and I look forward to helping to deliver the promise in this plan.
Thank you, everybody. I hope everyone can see the commitment and I think the enthusiasm of us sat around the table here. I mean, we're serious about wanting to make a difference to the borough. We've had this amazing opportunity. We are very privileged to be this cabinet, and that's important. We take this humbly in terms of the responsibility that rests on our shoulders, and we've got some really difficult, complex issues to work through. Aside from the council plan, we've got major issues in our town and in our borough that we want to work through, and we're doing so carefully, appropriately, making promises, not making promises we cannot keep, but being absolutely serious to work through them. And I think people know that. I hope the approach is coming across in the way that we want it to, so that people know that we're listening, people know we are responding, we are going to go forward with the council plan. We invite council, we want council to support us in this in the October council, so that we can deliver on the council plan and we can deliver on those ambitions and aspirations that our community have. So I ask you this evening, Cabinet, are you happy to endorse the council plan as it's written so that it can go forward to full council? Are we agreed? We're agreed. Thank you very much. And thank you, Paul, for your comments and contribution. That's appreciated. Next item on the agenda is item 6. It's the Housing and Homelessness Strategy. Councillor Laura James to introduce the paper.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to start by saying a really big thank you to the staff that have worked hard to produce this strategy, and all members and partners who have made comments on the draft document. We are required to have a homeless strategy, and it sets out our priorities and direction of travel, working in partnership with our many stakeholders to deliver the best outcomes for those in housing need. We need to recognise the challenges we face and are going to face in these difficult economic times in the life of this strategy. Partnership working is fundamental to the success of the housing strategy, as is the delivery of affordable homes, and our priority is the delivery of socially rented homes. I'm pleased to say that we are placing greater emphasis on regeneration, which is going to be key to the delivery of affordable homes. The work of the housing team and its partners to prevent homelessness and rough sleeping is second to none, and this strategy builds on that success. Our social inclusion partnership is achieving so much. The ability of the partnership to evolve to meet the financial pressures it faces is impressive. The climate change agenda is very much part of this strategy and its vision. We want homes to be energy efficient and cost effective to run. The place in which people live is important to us and forms part of this strategy. The work being undertaken by our staff to secure the domestic abuse accreditation is something to be proud of. This strategy presents our clear vision and positive vision over the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. We need to be...
Can I also say, and all benefit, I must say thank you to Councillor Cubitt that she picked up on an issue on page 85 of the emerging themes, Appendix 3, and it was in relation to the new council plan and the first bullet point, and so we need to make some changes there because that was a draft, and so that we will make those changes tomorrow before it goes to full council. So thank you, Councillor Cubitt.
Thank you, Councillor Cubitt.
Yes, Councillor Laura James, just to say I think this paper is outstanding, and many congratulations to you and to your team. And part of obviously this strategy is in line with also my portfolio, and I am unbelievably excited with discussions that are going on in relation to regeneration of areas of our borough that have been promised so much for so long and had nothing delivered. And our administration is going to do those things that they have been promised for so long. And Councillor Laura James and this cabinet are determined, and it's very exciting to be part of it. So I shall definitely be supporting this strategy. And the increase in social rented housing is also absolutely essential as a commitment for our borough going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Cubitt. Councillor James.
Just to pick up on that last point, I think we've always been, as a borough, very, very good at dealing with homelessness. But what we really want to be good at is just not having it and stopping it and preventing it in the first place. And if you look at all the appendices, there's a really interesting stat, which is there are 4,000 people on the housing waiting list. And in November 22, there were 2 properties that you could reasonably afford if you were using housing benefit. 2 properties. And a lot of those 4,000 people will be people that are struggling, trying to rebuild their lives, possibly not working, and there are only 2 properties available outside the social rented sector. I think it makes absolute sense that if you want to make the private rented sector more affordable for people and more competitive, you start somewhere, and this very clearly refocuses energies into that social rented sector and building up the supply of those properties. And I think that's absolutely welcome, because that's going to change the world for people that are currently struggling to hang on and just simply can't even rent privately or can't do anything. So I really, really welcome this paper, and I think we've all got to do everything we possibly can. Certainly the property and land that we own has got to be there and available. I know there's another paper going that's on a similar topic on EPH on Thursday, but we've got to be laser focused on addressing that situation of just 2 properties for 4,000 struggling families. We've got to do better than that, and I think this is a template in which we'll be able to deliver that.
Anybody else? Okay. I think the impact this paper has, it builds on all the work that was being done previously, but it adds to it. It shows direction, it shows ambition, it shows absolute commitment. And we know that you all have just said how critical affordable housing is, how critical social rent housing is. We are absolutely clear as an administration it is a priority for us. We know what we have to deliver. We know how difficult it will be. This strategy is a fundamental building block in that process. It tackles the issues around homelessness, it builds the strategy, it builds the direction of policy. It is a really important piece of our very important policy framework. So by taking it from here, we take it to full council. The recommendation for us this evening is that we approve the strategy to go to full council. Is that something that we agree? Agreed. Okay, colleagues. Item 7 on the agenda this evening is a paper related to Great Crested Newt district level licensing. This is an important paper if we are to take very seriously our commitment to the ecological emergency as much as climate change. This paper sets out the important role that we have in implementing policy that will lead to the protection of an important local species. And it sets out what is a mitigation programme. And it sets out a programme of work with a group called Nature Space. And it sets out the ability to deliver district level licensing to mitigate the impact on that protected species. It's important to relate to the fact that actually the partnership that's involved in this is Hampshire-wide, and it involves a significant amount of work that our biodiversity team have been working on, our ecological team have been working on to bring this forward. It also provides us an opportunity to take policy forward in the future. So if I can draw colleagues' attention to the recommendation that we're being asked to consider this evening, it comes in 3 bullet points. We were being asked to approve the partnership approach to district level licensing for the protection of great crested newts, which is our commitment to working with Nature Space in the current framework and the current setup that it is. It then asks us to approve supporting the application by Nature Space to Natural England to enable Nature Space to issue licences on behalf of Natural England for the relevant applications within the borough, those applications that are made for licensing and mitigation. And then it also asks for the delegation of authority to our Head of Environment and Community Services in the letter that's in Appendix 1 for submission to Natural England, accompanying the application for district level organisational licensing. In other words, bringing it into the borough in a way that we will be able to better manage in the future. So we're going to use the opportunity we have. We're going to go forward with what the opportunity presents in terms of Nature Space and what it's doing, but it also seeks to grow the policy, evolve the policy into a borough-wide, a borough-focused approach in the future. So that is a nutshell what the paper asks us to do. I just reflect the amount of work that's going on in this from the biodiversity team, and I'm not necessarily doing them the justice in presenting the paper to you, because it's just one example of the sorts of things that we need to be doing if we're serious about the ecological emergency. So I commend the paper to you. I ask you to support the recommendation in its 3 bullet points, but do I have any other comments from any other members?
It's unfortunate that Councillor Tom's not here, and it's the map that I find difficult to read. Whilst I'm absolutely supportive of the paper, the black zone, I can't tell where that is. I don't know whether anybody else can, and I don't know where it sits in relation to where Basingstoke is. So that's not very satisfactory. That would be my only comment.
Understood. I was looking at the map and doing the same in terms of the presentation, but I'm sure the map is a much more resolute PDF somewhere else in the team. But the point nonetheless is the paper we have before is in detail beyond the map, and I'm hoping everybody is supportive of the principles that we have. I know you've just said as much. So is anybody else wanting to make a contribution?
It's just that because it's a desk top collation, and because I can't read the map,
we'll take it away to
Thank
improve
you.
the map. I knew where you were going with that. Happily do that. We'll have a look at that and make sure that that's appropriate. In terms of the actual detail of the policy, does anybody have any more comments on that? Are we happy to agree the 3 recommendations as they're presented? Thank you, colleagues. That's fine, it's important. Okay. Next on the agenda this evening. Item 8 is Farnham House. Paper, Councillor James to introduce.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Farnham House, tall block of offices that you can see as you approach Basingstoke. It's been a landmark throughout my life, but it's currently not being occupied and used well. So we were set a task. In fact, I wasn't set a task. It was our property team who were set the Mission Impossible task with our very own Tom Cruise leading them, to try and somehow keep the AA in Basingstoke. They're synonymous with Basingstoke. It's a major employer and a big brand, and we're very proud to have them because it's part of Basingstoke's image of being something that attracts big companies and big businesses, as well as supporting those local ones. At the same time, we needed to protect our revenue because obviously it's a building that does attract rent. And also at the same time make sure that we make the property very readily available for our ambitious plans for Basing View, which Councillor Cubitt's working on, and potential changes of use to the building in the future. And I believe we've managed to do it because what's been put before Cabinet tonight is a decision to agree to hand over to Property Services to deal with the detail. But essentially what it means is that the AA will surrender their lease on on Fainham House. They will remain in the borough. They will need parking, so we'll be supporting them by providing parking, initially in their own car park. But they'll have to rent it because it won't be theirs anymore, and that will recover much of the rent. The additional spaces that are available will be able to rent out to other users. I've been over and spoke to a number of Basing View properties, recently the New Grosvenor House, and already the amount of tenancies they're accepting into that building means they'll struggle for parking. So there's a market there, which means we can recover our income, but on a lift and shift basis. So if an exciting opportunity comes up for Fainham House, we'll just re-provision the parking somewhere else in Basing View. So all in all, as I say, the original target was to keep the AA, free up the building and protect our revenue. And this proposal does achieve all three, which is a fantastic achievement. And it does mean that we're not going to have a long-term, we hope not a long-term, boarded-up building that's 19 stories tall and can be seen from everywhere around. Hopefully the opportunity to regenerate what's now a very significant and large site becomes ours. So the proposal is for us to really leave it to Martin and Mission, or Ethan, if I call him that, and the Mission Impossible team to come reach agreements with the AA, sign those off. Within the deal itself, in terms of surrender, there will be a capital receipt for the council in order to make sure that the building at some point can be derated in terms of removing some of the materials from the building and get us halfway towards reducing those costs of potential demolition as it comes up to regeneration. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor James. Can I draw Cabinet's attention to the recommendation before us? It's to agree that authority be delegated to the Executive Director of Corporate Services and Assets, the Section 151 officer, to accept the surrender of the AA lease at Fainham House, subject to the following conditions: that the AA contributes a sum cash in lieu of and undertaking works to strip the tower, podium and refurbish the existing car park as set out in the heads of terms, that the AA enter into an agreement for the lease for the newly refurbished office space at the office building called Plant in Basing View, or such other premises in Basingstoke as are agreed by the council, that the AA take a lease of 10 years plus during the duration of 250 spaces at Fainham House car park, or in the event of redevelopment of Fainham House of other such car park as the council shall specify. So it's delegate that authority to the Executive Director in consultation with the Director of Regeneration to take steps necessary to prepare Fainham House for future redevelopment and to take the appropriate action to generate revenue from the car parking pending redevelopment. This is an important decision. I reflect on what Councillor James has said in terms of who this involves in terms of the AA and their history in the town, but also the importance of this whole area to the future of Basing View. Cabinet, would anybody like to pass any further comment, or are you happy to accept the recommendations as they are before you? Are we agreed? Brilliant. Thank you very much, colleagues. That brings us to the end of the agenda. There are no confidential items or exempt because we've gone through them. There is nobody speaking on that, in which case that is the end of the meeting this evening, and thank you very much for your attendance. Cheers.